really wish I wasn't so polite, because I would really just like to just say all those actual things.
You're not always polite. Beth Learn.
Rude.
Okay.
Welcome to Fit2B Radio. Slip on your minimal sneakers, notch your headphones into your ears, tuck your smartphone into your pocket, and take us along for a walk while we talk. Or just grab a cup of your favorite drink and get on the floor and stretch a bit while we bring you all things fitness, core, and Diastasis Recti related.
Wow. What do we call this, Beth? Fit2B Radio. Hey everybody, welcome to Fit2B Radio. My name is Chris Benke. I'm your host for this cool podcast program I'm very excited about today. I'm here with Beth Learn. She's the founder of Fit2B Studio. We also have a really cool guest I'm excited about today, Lorraine Scapens. She's the founder of Pregnancy Exercise. I love doing stuff like this because she is in a faraway land that I really love. Beth is in Washington. I'm in Oregon. We're in the U.S. She's in New Zealand. And just the miracle of technology, we can connect today.
Yeah.
And we're talking about something that's kind of interesting. Not kind of interesting. It's very interesting. It's kind of different. Yeah. And it's about movement, but not just movement. We talk a lot about movement, but more what Beth calls bendy movement.
Yes, bendy.
So when you talk about bendy movement, I'd love to hear what you mean by that, Beth. Why don't you explain bendy movement?
Well, I'm bendy, but I'm not as bendy as some people. Lorraine has very bendy daughters that are in gymnastics and tumbling. Mm-hmm. And so when I say bendy, I'm talking about like the elite gymnastic, ballet, tumbling, yes, cheer. They are holding their legs over their heads and doing splits in the air and bending back and putting their toes on their head. Like my daughter is very hypermobile. She's a swimmer, so swimmers too, they can be very hypermobile through their shoulders. And just looking at how that plays out in the core.
Right. So Lorraine, Beth tells me you have daughters that are in gymnastics and they're very bendy. And as a fitness expert, how do you know what's safe, what's not safe? How do you make sure as you're doing some of these more extreme movements that you're not injuring yourself or setting yourself up for problems later as you grow up or what?
Or get pregnant.
Or get pregnant, yeah.
Yeah.
And that's our concern as mums.
Yes.
You remember back to where you yourself as a little girl, and even just being 30 seemed like an absolute forever off, and you just didn't even want to go there. You didn't want to think about it. So we know that our kids aren't thinking about how their body's going to be when they're pregnant, when they want to perform later on, if they want to go on to do different sports. But we know when they're not thinking like that. So we have to do that sort of thinking for them. So we as parents have to try somehow to manage whatever sports they get into. And at this age where our kids are, mine are coming up to 6, 8, and 10, and Beth's are teenage, going into that.
12. Yeah, 12. My daughter's 12.
Yeah, so we're coming up to a time where these kids are now classed as elite athletes, and they're doing elite type sports, and they can be training anywhere from 8 to 14 hours a week. Ooh. And a gymnast I spoke to at the weekend, she's level 6, and they're expected to do 16 to 20 plus hours a week in the gym. Now that's
a lot of bending.
It's a lot, and it's a lot of stress on the body. Now, at that level, that's going to be quite hard to manage. But where I am with my kids now, who are doing that 8 to 10 hours a week, it's managing it and making sure that they're doing other stuff to compensate with that as well. They're doing completely the opposite things. They're still running, they're still climbing trees, the kind of things that we like to, just to mix it up. So that's what I really say to parents, one sport's not necessarily great for the kids. I know that they may love it and be going off towards that one. Right. But if we can try and keep them in a couple of sports that perhaps even work both ways. Mine swim and do surf lifesaving. So that's completely different from the gymnastics and cheerleading skills. You know, they're running up and down with reps on the beach, they're pulling the surf skis, and then they're riding on the surf skis on the way. So I think trying to keep different sports and managing kids' sports that way is a really good tip for parents, especially at this age where our kids are, Beth, you know?
Yeah, it's all about balance. I know the one place I get a little feisty, and I'm not sure if you've experienced this, is, you know, they're doing these sports and the sports are already tough and challenging on them. And you and I know that a cartwheel uses the core, and, you know, doing splits in the air uses the core, and swimming in the water uses the core. But then these coaches and trainers sometimes will have them lay down and do sit-ups and crunches at the end. And I have walked out on a pool deck and been like, excuse me. And it didn't go over very well, so I didn't do that again.
No, I'd love to have seen that.
Excuse me. And I've sent the letters with the kids and probably have gotten in the way a little too much. But it's hard. It's hard to know as much as I know and then let my kids still do their thing.
Yeah.
So how do you find the balance? That's the tough part. How do you find? So Lorraine, it sounds like you know about this, you're an expert in it, and your kids are participating. So it sounds like, you know, you don't just eliminate it, but it sounds like what I'm hearing from you is it's more about balance, and that's what Beth is do. How do you find that balance?
You know, I try and teach them to what to look out for. You know, the coaches are hard over here. The coaches are hard in elite sports. And, you know, to start to if I could change all the V sit-ups and the Pilates style moves into side planks and other options, I would get them doing that. But it's not an option for kids. You know, we can do that in mum's aerobic classes. You know, we'll look after them when they're postnatal, when they're going back into the aerobics classes, we can give them options to do instead. Whereas in these class situations with the coaches, it's just not. It's not going to happen, you know, and your kid's not going to want to do anything different. And going on to just something else, you know, when kids are injured as well, and we give that time. I've not seen this with myself, my own kids, but I know kids are pressurized back into sport far too early when they're injured, and that's going to have, you know, huge effects later on as well. Going back to how I manage it, I take them into the gym downstairs. I take them into my studio, get them to watch how they're contracting the cords within the classes, get them to know the points what Beth and I look at when they're losing control, when they can see the point starting to come up in the abdominals, you know, to change the breathing around, and to make them aware of the posture as well. You know, posture's not mentioned as much as what I would like to see it in. You know, these sort of classes, what we see, it's just not mentioned at all. You know, they're saying to them, stand up straight, kids, but they don't really register with that. You know, they're not being.
What does that mean? They don't even know what that means.
When I tell my daughter to stand up straight, she overdoes it. It's this. This sassy, fine.
I wonder where she gets that. I don't know.
I have no idea.
But they don't know why as well. They can't also connect that great posture, good core strength is going to, you know, equate to better performance within their sport. Right. And, you know, I think, you know, from where we are, the coaches just really don't understand and grasp how a core system should be functioning. You know, we've got to protect these girls' pelvic floor muscles for later on. That's my biggest concern. And they don't understand that. Like you say, with the back bends, with the multiple reps, and we're not just talking 3 sets of 10 or 12 reps as we would program again for our mums recovery. It's hundreds of reps, and that's what the major.
That's a lot of pressure.
So how do you find the balance? Because I like your story, Beth. I'm going to talk to your kids next time I see them and find out how that went. Coming out on the pool deck. And you're saying it doesn't work out, and I'm imagining that it doesn't sometimes. But how do you have the balance of maybe not necessarily doing that, but creating a situation? And I hear what you're saying, Lorraine, is it's about educating the kids so that they're more aware. But is that all? Like, what else should you be doing? Is there a point where you say enough is enough? We have to, you can't do this anymore. How do you know? How do you see that stuff? How does the average parent do that?
That's so hard. These kids, my kids at the moment, absolutely love their sports. They're doing it. You'll see them, backflipping all the time when they're away from training. And as a parent, you can see when they're coming up into the teenage years, actually being in love with a sport can help them through the teenage years and can stop them getting involved in some things we really want to stay away from. So again, we've got to look at that balance. Do I stop them doing the sport because they may or may not have issues later on, or is this going to stop them, going out with guys too young, turn into alcohol, to drugs, because they've got this really cool little family within the cheerleading and the gymnastics squad? So that's a really tough question. Yeah. Also as well, when we used to look at triathlon and the hours, I was a triathlete, and you miss out on so many things being an athlete at that level, and the kids will start to as well. So
right.
It's a big decision for parents to make, to pull them out of sports. But at some point, study becomes more important, because not every kid's going to make it to the Olympics. So they start to, I would say around that point anyway, that kids will start, that's when your choice as a parent starts to come through and say, hey, look, this is what's going to happen, at 14, 15, study, and where you're going with your career is much more important.
Sure.
Yeah. I know for myself what ended up working in terms of talking to the coaches was waiting until I had another question. And, you talk to them after the class. Yeah. When I'm not seeing red and thinking they're trying to damage my daughter's pelvic floor for life.
Yeah.
Because really, and you and I both know, we can fix pelvic floors.
Yeah.
We can put people through a rehab protocol and they can reestablish that. And it's never too late to do that. Yes, there may be some residual damage, but they can live a strong life even if they've done some damage. So I wait and, hey, I have a question about my son or my daughter. And also, I was curious about why you're doing those movements. I'm a fitness professional, and I think the whole class is a lot of good core work. Oh, that's just what I was taught. Oh, well, could we get together? And I'd love to share some other ideas with you. And that has gone over better. So as a Fit Pro mom, being more humble.
Yeah.
I'm curious, Lorraine, what you would say. Like, if you could talk, this might be a little dangerous, but if you could talk to all gymnast, tumbling, cheer coaches out there, and you could give them a couple pieces of advice and ways they could adapt a little bit to protect pelvic floors and cores, what would you say?
I would say completely mix up the skills and the basics. They don't seem to be creative enough within their skills, so they're constantly driving the same skill.
Like backbends.
Yeah. So, but when you start to see some other coaches who are taking them more through, they're using, like the fit balls, etc., like sponges, they're just taking them through different movement patterns, but it's still giving the same skill to get to the end goal. Right. So I think instead of coaches doing walkovers Monday, walkovers Tuesday, handstands, the same warm-up, it's constant. It's just like they can't get out of this, all the cheerleaders, all the gymnastics students, and there's no need for it. And I think gymnasts, coaches and cheerleaders just need to become more creative, then we're not putting the same stresses on the body every single day. We mix it up. And that's just what we do with our own functional exercise, Beth.
Right.
We mix up lunges, we mix up squats, you know, and we do that for functional movement. We know there's so many ways to heal a diastasis. Look at all our, you know, core experts. We all get them in slightly different ways, but we all tend to achieve the same results for what our clients and mums achieve. And I think that's where they have to look in this industry, and swimmers as well. You know, they can mix things up, they can change it around.
Agreed. And that's crucial, not just for cores and pelvic floors, but it's also crucial for, you know, shoulder and hand injuries, because that's where a lot of kids are getting injured too. And then when they get a bad injury there and then they re-injure it because they came back too soon, now you've just cost them their entire athletic career in that department, because you've given them an overuse or chronic injury that they are having trouble recovering from, that's going to plague them the rest of their life. And we pay attention to those injuries, but we don't necessarily pay attention to the core and pelvic floor injuries, the leaking that even young girls are experiencing in these sports.
And can I bring us back, Chris, because what's really interesting, Beth, what I'm seeing on Instagram, because my kids are on Instagram, and you know, we follow a lot of the cheerleaders and gymnasts, and often we see gymnasts in leotards, so we don't see the core. But when they're on their Instagram, they're showing off the core. And now, Beth, what I am seeing, and which is really interesting, is when we're with our pregnant clients and healing the diastasis after, we know we don't need to close for optimal recovery. Right. But women tend to never know where they were prior to pregnancy. But now I can tell you that the variation in the linear album measurements of the gymnastics and cheerleaders is quite significant. Beth, I am seeing the diastasis stuff.
You're seeing width. Yeah, you're seeing it start young.
And this is 11 and 12-year-old kids. You know, so I can see where mine are now. You know, that I'm just looking at it. I've not mentioned it because I don't want them to be so aware of their bodies, and I don't want them to, you know, it to be pointed out too much to them yet. I'm still in the, you know, they're only 8. They're only, you know, but I can see it in the young girls now, and it's starting to happen. So how far will that go? You know, how far will it start to separate? Who knows? Will they know that they're getting wider? I would doubt it. So it's happening. And it does look like, you know, throughout your young girls coaching program, Beth, you know, this is something to be aware of for the kids who are into this sort of sport, just to see, okay, mine is a little bit wider at the moment. I'll take that with me later on. You know, can I do something about it? Right. At the moment, is it going to get wider? Have I got back problems with it? And we can.
So, go ahead, Chris.
So you guys are both professionals in this space. You're hyper aware of it. You're talking to people about it all the time. You're thinking about how it applies to your kids. But what should the average parent do that is maybe listening to this podcast and going, maybe they don't even know what we're talking about. So for sure they do some research in that. But let's say they do, what should they be doing? So they're not going to necessarily be looking at their daughter and say, I think we're developing a problem here, because they're not aware of it. But what should they do?
What should they be aware of, and what can they do?
And how do they do it? Yeah.
We could write a book.
They need to do our workouts.
Probably should.
Together.
Say that again.
I said they need to do our workouts, mother and daughter workouts.
That's right.
Our core fitness programs, you know.
That's right. Yeah, I would say to be watching. I would say, you know, like Lorraine said, don't over mention it, but be watching for doming and tensing in their cores. Be watching for when they're standing there. If you're seeing a more than 2 fingers, you can put 2 fingers down the middle of their bodies. Watch for reports of low back pain. Watch and listen for them to mention even casually or giggles that they peed themselves. And if they're getting older, watch for irregular cycles. Now, of course, cycles can take a couple years to stabilize out. But if they're bleeding heavily more than twice a month, that needs to be evaluated. And that's a sign of overtraining. Sometimes they're not even getting enough nutrition. Lorraine, but what would you say, like, what can the average parent do? And what else, is there anything else you would have them watch for?
I don't know I mean, those tips, what you brought up, Beth, are fantastic. And that's when we really do need to start to watch them from 11 to 12.
Mm-hmm.
You know, when they're starting to develop, we've got the hormones that are going to play the part, periods are going to start, breasts, hips. You know, these girls have then got to relearn the skills that they've learned with being little girls with no curves, and now they've got the weight of boobs and they've got hips, and so we need to start to watch the posture and how they're coping with it, and asking them, you know, is that ache in your back a little bit more? Has it been going on for longer because they're just not coping very well with the extra weight of, you know, these breasts that they're developing? And I think as parents, we really do need to watch our kids, especially if we want to help them when they're much older, to be pain-free adults and to be leak-free and to have that strong core. It's just education, you know. It's that's really the key. As we've been doing throughout our businesses for the last 7 or 8 years, it's now we've given that to our mums, and hopefully all our mums will take that through and onto the kids. So now we've just got to you know, reach that wider audience, Beth, is what we have. Hopefully we're growing our own little bit, you know, Fit Mum and Fit2B families. So
yes,
it sounds like from both of you, it comes down to two things, and maybe there's more, but two things. The first one, which is just critical, is having an education in this stuff. And I don't mean a professional education. I mean a self-education. I mean, you go to our website, to your website, Lorraine, and you learn about what these issues are. Because if you as a parent don't understand this stuff about yourself or whatever, you're certainly not going to be able to recognize it in your children. So you have to have a good education in that space. And there's a lot of resources that are out there, not even just our websites, but there's a lot of resources out there. So you need to be educated. And the second one is one that I think a lot of parents miss, even though they might not admit it or realize it. And that's the awareness piece. You have to be aware and watching and paying attention and talking and communicating with your child to make sure that you're noticing these things, because a lot of change happens when they grow up. They change a lot. You have to have a relationship. They change a lot. A lot of changes are fine, but that's requires being very aware of what's really happening. What do you think about that? Are there other things?
No, I think that's hit the nail on the head though, Chris.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah. Well, and Lorraine, you and I met because of our crossover. And I think I kind of stormed your swimming pool deck.
What happened? How did you guys meet? Let's hear about that.
Lorraine, you have to tell it.
No, you can, Beth. You're awesome. Go on, do it.
Oh dear. Well, I stumbled across her blog, and she had this article that I think it was a little bit about strollers and a little bit about core exercises. And this was back when I was like a really eager puppy. I was kind of still new and fresh to the whole Diastasis world, and so I was on this mission to leave comments on all the blogs.
Yeah, well, we used to comment on every blog.
And now I don't do that. I'm like, you know what? You can lead a horse to water.
Beth. We've learned. We've moved on.
Yes. And so I was like, I saw, but the planks, are you sure about the planks? And she responded, and we ended up kind of in this little back and forth. And then she was humble and nice and explained, and we went, and then we ended up building this professional relationship, and we've collaborated on quite a few things over the years. And Lorraine, you have to tell us about all the programs you have. They're so good.
Yeah, I would love to hear about it.
So I set up, I think, our website probably just a year after you guys, Beth, and I was trying to think how many years it is that was ago when we first met. It's probably, yeah, which is amazing. You know, we've had this internet relationship for so long. It's been great to have the support through the website. So mine's pregnancyexercise.co.nz, and we have the main 3 programs, which are the Fit to Birth Mum, see women through the pregnancy, birth to fit mum, which women do after. Then we have a super fit mum, and then we also do fit mum challenges as well, just to mix it up a little bit. So everything's online. And behind everything is, what I like to promote is I just want mums to be fit, healthy and strong and functionally fit, so we can run around with our kids without worrying about peeing ourselves on the trampoline. Things are under control and we have no pain when we're vacuuming, out to the shopping, etc. So our programs tend to get mums back to wherever they want to go, whether that's, back to the CrossFit classes, to the aerobics, back into, marathon running. We look at that, and throughout the pregnancy, it's all about the mum and specifics. Again, trying to get through a pregnancy without pain, being comfortable. Very, very specific programming.
Yeah. And your programming also deals with diastasis, same as ours. I love the difference in our accents on this word. Like, I've got this American Western diastasis, and how do you say it?
Diastasis. Diastasis. English.
Like, is that the way to say it? And I don't know. It depends on who you ask and on what continent they are. Yeah, but the important thing is both of our programs are diastasis aware. She definitely specializes more in pregnancy. Fit2B is more of a library, kind of open access, all these workouts. And we just recently compiled some of those workouts into a type of program.
Right.
It's more of a compilation and like, here, do these workouts on this week. Hers is, she has these beautiful set programs. She's also got Turning Baby, right? Which deals with, fetal alignment and positioning that will help to, if your baby is malpositioned in the womb, different movements you can do. And it is a tried and tested and proven program, turningbaby.com. This is just a very knowledgeable woman. You have almost 100,000 followers on your Facebook page.
Close.
So awesome.
That's fantastic.
That's hard work.
Good.
Good stuff. It's been so good to have you on here.
Thank you.
So if you guys could leave just one piece of advice let's just get targeted for a second. I think it's good. Like the gymnast moms, what are you telling them, right? Like if you could just sit down for 10 minutes, grab a cup of coffee with a gymnast mom, what do you need? What's the message you need to give to them?
Lorraine, it's all you.
To ensure, regardless of what training that they're doing, that the kid still loves it. They've got to have the love and not feel that they're being pushed into it.
Right.
Because that has all different types of negative effects, not just with the body, mentally as well. To mix it up. Still ensure that whether they're going out for a walk, out for a run, out for a bike, still doing the kids thing, still climbing trees, mix it up that way, still jumping in the swimming pool, going out in the sea, surfing. So one sport doesn't become the obsession and that. And then posture. And then to watch your kids doing the sport and to see, sit down with them for an hour. Some gyms don't allow them. Some gyms don't allow parents to watch. Have a word to the coach. Hey, I'm just a little bit, worried about how my kids' posture is, how they're moving throughout the training session. I want to come in and have a look, whether they want to go and speak to a local physiotherapist to come in to have a chat with everybody in the gym. That's like that. Quite a good idea. And a good physiotherapist who really understands that sort of overtraining the pelvic floor and the core. So you can talk to quite a lot to a mom in 10 minutes.
Yeah. Well, and like you said, the physiotherapist, we call them physical therapists over here in America. But to get your kid or yourself to one of those at the first sign of problem, You know, wetting your pants when you sneeze one time is not a huge deal. If you've had a cold, things can get a little tired. But when it's ongoing and they're wetting themselves a little bit every time they do a front flip or bounce on the trampoline, or even for moms, getting yourself in to be seen. There are rehabilitative exercises to treat that. There's biofeedback. There's amazing things they do.
Yeah.
And it's so important. I'm glad you touched on that.
It sounds like, I mean, really, it's about, again, understanding, educating yourself, being aware, having good communication with your child, and paying very close attention to what's going on, and not being afraid to go to the coach and have some of these conversations with them and say, I need to make sure that what's happening is going to be beneficial for my child. And I want to do that in a way that doesn't necessarily interfere with the middle of a practice, maybe, Beth. But at the same time, it's helpful. And I think giving yourself permission to do that is good and appropriate. Lorraine.
Okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. So, but also directly to the mom. What about the mom who wants to return to gymnastics? Who may...
Question.
And
it's happening. It's so cool. Beth, we've got the circus programs for adults, there's tumbling programs for adults. I love that sort of stuff. It's different.
The pole dancing for adults, the pole dancing fitness classes. Chris is like, what?
it's fantastic. And now see, that's where our programs are coming in, and we teach the mums before they go back to these classes. Right. You've got to be functional to do these classes. You've got to be, have a strong core to hold a handstand. Handstands have made a massive comeback for adults.
I've been working on them.
And not just for CrossFit as well. And, there's some mums who have never done a handstand, and to teach that, we've got to come back to the basics of your core strength, the pelvic function. Yeah. And so that's where
so the answer is
that's where they are with the programs, and I don't want to,
the answer is yes, but let's first do these other things.
Some women will say, well, I don't want to do your Birth to Fit Mum program because I had my baby 5-6 years ago. It's like, well, that's actually where you need to start if you want to get back, to perform, to do these classes and to enjoy them.
Yeah, because what breaks my heart is when I wrote a blog about this mom I met in real life. I didn't use her name. But we were watching our kids do gymnastic tumbling stuff, and she's like, oh, I missed that. I wish I could do that. I used to do that until then I had kids, and I can't do that without leaking. And I was like, whoa.
You're talking to the right
I got a program for you. And I referred her actually to physical therapy. I did not refer her to Fit2B because she was clearly in need of rehab. Yeah. And I know that within our community, our broad international community, she'll eventually find me.
Yeah.
Or you, or whoever she needs. Get her to rehab first, and then maybe she'll be able to return to what she loves to do.
That's it.
Well, Lorraine, you have a lot of amazing programs, education. You mentioned your website a little earlier, but I'd love for you to mention again.
Mention all of them.
Join. What's the best place for people to go to find your information?
And come and visit us on Facebook, which is just at Pregnancy Exercise. Come and check us out from there, and then that will lead you to the website, all the posts, and all the blogs. We're very active on the social media channels.
I love it. I love it. If you're just listening to this podcast for the first time, you should subscribe. We have lots of amazing guests like Lorraine. We talk about a lot of practical things that are useful in real life and not abstract, weird stuff. It's very useful. You can also check out resources on our website, which is fit2b.us, FIT, the number 2, the letter B.us. If you do a search on our website for Lorraine, you'll also find links to her stuff there. So there's plenty of ways to get this information. Like we said earlier, it's super important that you take the time to understand some of these things and understand what's happening with yourself, with your body, so that you're prepared to, be aware of how it affects your kids as well, and as they're kind of going through their life changes and their sports and all this stuff. So I'd encourage you to do that. You should subscribe to our YouTube channel. There's lots of good videos and resources there as well on our website. And thank you for taking the time to hang out with us today. Lorraine, thank you for your expertise and all your knowledge and being willing to share some of that with us. Until next time. Thanks, guys.
Yes, Lorraine, you're awesome.
You're welcome.
Thank you so much.
We'll love to hang out with you again.
Yes. Oh, we'll do this again. Don't worry.
Thanks so much, guys.
Bye, friends.
Bye.